Welcome back, loyal fight fans, to Boxing. Eat that shit up. I am your host, Tummy Tom, the human body snatcher. Please hit that thumbs up button for us. Please hit that subscribe button for us. And please, please, please tell a friend. Sorry about the little bit of a late start getting this one up today, but my daughter is homesick. She's been a little sick, so I kept her out of school today, and I'm staying here taking care of her. But she's getting a little nap in, and just like the loyal fight fan that I am here for you guys, and we're still getting today's episode up and going for you on the Monday. So there's a lot to get into today. There was some really, really great boxing fights over the weekend, and there were several of them, almost overwhelming. It took up my whole night, and I enjoyed every second of it, watching these fights. So let's kick things off with the big one. The Showtime card, Gervonta Tank Davis taking on Leo Santa Cruz. But on the undercard of that one, which was very good as well, we had Escott Cruz stops Diego Magdaleno in round one with a vicious onslaught right from the bell, overwhelmed him, and just made it very clear that Escott Cruz needs better opponents than that. You know, Diego has been on a, you know, he's had a rough one here with some losses, and people were kind of saying that he shouldn't be boxing anymore maybe. And I do believe that for this one, he got a new trainer, was starting off with a new camp for this one, and still just got viciously taken out of their first round. So I'm not sure that we're going to see any more of Diego Magdaleno, to be honest with you. They were already talking about that from his losses before this fight. He said he was taking this one, coming back to prove something. I mean, he was just overwhelmed and stopped in the first round, so there's not too much to say about with that one. After that, we had big win for Regis Prograis. He stops Heraldez in round 3, and I'm very excited about this. As you guys know, I'm a big Regis fan, and I think that also, you know, he's just going to be another big name in that already huge, you know, lightweight division and surrounding, you know, right around those lightweight divisions is where there are just so many great fighters. You know, they've been on display even of recent as well. You know, where you have Lomachenko, Tank Davis. You know, you have Lopez who just beat Lomachenko. You know, shocked the world there. You got you know, now Regis Prograis. You got Devin Haney. You got, I mean, the list just goes on. You got a million great fighters right around there, and he's going to throw his name in that hat. You know, this one wasn't called a title eliminator, but let's call it what it is. It pretty much is. It's pretty much going to get him a shot at something here. Maybe not, you know, maybe not the real super belts, but a shot at some sort of belt, and I'll get to that right now. Very, very relative. Cool that these were on the same card because Prograis gets that win, and then Mario Barrios stops Cowboy Ryan Carl in the 6th round. Good fight here, but really, you know, Carl just out of his element, and Barrios putting on a really good performance against him. I think there was some sort of headbutt that happened later in the fight that had actually, you know, split Carl's head open, you know, quite a bit, pretty gnarly, and he just couldn't deal with it. Couldn't deal with the blood, and this was, you know, he had already got knocked down in that 6th round as well, and then he ended up getting finished there. So that was a good performance from Barrios, and what I'm getting to there is I think that they might set up Prograis versus Barrios for that belt that Barrios has now, and that would be a good start for Prograis. And I think that when we talk about fights we'd like to see, I think this is a fun one. Of course, there are, you know, you can always think of kind of better contenders and better fights to set up, but we all know how boxing kind of works. It's weird, and with all the different promotions, we've kind of been over this before about how that works, that they usually don't end up setting up the exact kind of thing you'd like to see. I'm gonna say that it's very likely that Prograis versus Barrios happens now, as they both got wins on that same undercard, as they're both under the Showtime banner, and it's an easy one to make there. You don't have to get into cross promotion, and boxing certainly loves that. But this will be a good one, and it'll be a good start for Prograis, I think, because I think he can beat Barrios. So we'll kind of hold our breath there and see what happens if that fight ends up getting announced. I think that's the direction that they will go. And then you had Tank Davis versus Leo Santa Cruz fight. Very good fight. I enjoyed the hell out of this fight. So Santa Cruz does get stopped in that sixth round as well. But I did do actually a round for round breakdown here because, yet again with the judges' scorecards are just not. They do not pay respect to how the fight actually went, how the fight actually looked. If you heard, of the judges' scorecards, I think they only gave Leo Santa Cruz the second round. I don't agree with that at all. So this is what part of what made this fight so great to me, is that I did think that Leo Santa Cruz showed up to fight in great shape. I thought he had a good game plan as well. And to be honest with you, I think there's a big argument to say that he was actually winning this fight before getting taken out of there. So lots of fireworks in both directions. You always know that Tank Davis has that power, that equalizer, he has with several punches, though. He doesn't have one good punch. It's not a Deontay Wilder kind of overhand right or a straight right that you got to keep your eye out for. He does have an arsenal of punches that he can use and resort to when certain ones aren't working. He has many great punches in his arsenal. And so you always know that that's there. What we didn't really know is how competitive the fight could be, and if Leo could even, if Santa Cruz could even pull it off. And I think that, these guys both just showed up to fight, and they put on an absolutely great performance, and that they should both go home proud for how this fight went. I think they wasted no time at all, and that's why it did only go 6 rounds. I thought that first off, 100% it not could have, but absolutely would have gone on longer if Santa Cruz. I'm not, this is the opposite of actually making criticism here. I think that if he stuck to the game plan, it would have gone longer, and he could have, if he stayed out of trouble enough, he could have even taken this fight possibly, in the way that he was fighting. And what I mean by that is that and why this isn't a criticism as well, is that, he just couldn't do that because he has this warrior spirit in him. And that whole, Mexican fighting spirit really shone through in this fight. But I think it also played into being his demise. He did very well with, I'll give you the round by round breakdown here in a sec, but the overall kind of story of the fight to me was that, you always knew, and especially when they, even beforehand, and especially when they both got in there and you got to see it, that Tank's shots landed a lot harder. Every one of them. He's just so much more of a power puncher, it's not even funny. So the story of this fight to me is that his shots, Tank Davis, his shots were harder, but Santa Cruz had all the spirit, all the will to compete, and landed a lot of shots in 1 rounds. I thought more than just the second round. I think there's a big argument that he could have even been winning the fight until that happened. So let's jump right in. Yeah, but Santa Cruz allowing himself to get into that dogfight because he kind of let his heart get the better of him and said, you want a dogfight? I'll do a dogfight with you. He likes to do that. He's shown that he likes to do that, and it usually works out for him. They should have maybe known, as he talked, he's a smart guy that he knows that he did not underestimate Tank Davis. He knows that Tank Davis has all the power. He talked about it before the fight, so he maybe, that might have been his undoing, was his same willingness to just yet again get into a dogfight eventually. But let's jump right in here. So round one, made some notes. Round one was close, right? It was close, but they gave this to Davis. I think that I gave this to Santa Cruz. I gave round one to Santa Cruz. There was a slip, right, in the fight. They ruled it a slip when Tank got knocked down. The ref came over and said, nope, no knockdown, that's a slip. Something of importance here is that it wasn't simply off of punches and then slipping over his own feet. It was a little bit of a weird one because his feet were getting behind himself. So it was a trip, slip, whatever you'd call it. Technically, I guess I would have to agree with that, I suppose. But there is an argument to be made to say that that was a knockdown because his feet only ever slightly got tangled up, and the reason that they did was because he was backing up and he didn't, trip over himself and just fall down. He was forced down while backing up because he was being hit with combinations from Cruz. So, yeah, it was a funny one. It was a funny one this first round, but I do give that to Cruz, even if you don't call that a knockdown, because Cruz, he's making Tank work here. He was utilizing the ring well, and though Tank was coming in hot, trying to land a lot of body shots and big powerful shots to the head, he blocked a lot of them. He blocked and evaded a lot of them. And I thought that just overall he was more effective in this first round. I give that first round to Santa Cruz. The second round, like I said, even these piss poor judges gave the second round to Santa Cruz. So there's really there's no debate there. Give that to Santa Cruz too. I think that he comes out different too. Right away, it's a quick change. These are only 3-minute rounds, right? Each round is only 3 minutes, and they get that first round out of the way, and where Santa Cruz is kind of backing up the whole time and looking to counter and looking at it. It appears like looking to play the game plan of letting Tank see if he'll gas himself out a bit, which is what a lot of people expected because that was kind of his strategy. Most people thought going into this fight. That he would try to take Tank Davis into deep waters, into the later rounds, and drown him there. That being said, complete surprise, then round two comes out, and he's a completely different fighter. He literally, you watch round one, he's backing up, he's letting Tank do his thing, he's kind of looking at him, seeing what he likes to throw. The second round, Santa Cruz comes out and refuses to be walked down. Just right away. You usually make this transition later in the fourth, even the fifth round, similar to the Lomachenko fight. As I talked about with Lopez, that he just got going a bit late, but this is a game plan that we've seen time and time and time again, is giving up some of those early rounds. You just can't let too many get away from you. But right away in the second, Santa Cruz just says, no, now I'm not being walked down at all. And he takes this round with aggression as well, kind of walking Tank down, really. He keeps his hands up very tight, keeps his guard up very tight. But again, I think that here is something of note, that Tank noticed this, that instead of a loose guard, instead of probing, jab or that probing lead hand, he had a very tight shelled guard. So Tank trying to go around with shots to the head were really just being blocked left and right. And he has a good guard to where he just dips like this and covers his body with the same tight guard. But what's the shot that can get through this tight guard like this? Boom, uppercut, right up the middle. And I think that Tank saw this really tight guard, and you see him later on in the fight trying to utilize this same uppercut that eventually scores for him and ends the night. But yeah, round 2, I give that to Santa Cruz. The tight guard is good while he's walking him down, and here's the key, he's not letting Tank set his feet, which is very important. And I thought this was brilliant because, like I said, I gave that first round to him, but it was close. It was a close round. I thought the second round was much more dominant, and it's funny that he was walking, the bully down in this second round and being very effective with it. And the reason is because he's not letting Tank set his feet. Because when Tank can set his feet, then he can utilize those real power shots. But when you're backing up and you're throwing things, they're never going to land with the same effectiveness. Just never. So not letting him set his feet was key here to stealing the second round. The third round, this is another close round, again, because it's a very good fight. I am not mad if you give this one to Tank at all. This was a very close, this is a pick'em round, so no one's arguing over this round here. But if I'm having to pick one, I did give it to Santa Cruz. Again, not mad at all if you give this one to Tank. But I did give this one as well to Santa Cruz, which in my scoring would make it 3 rounds to none at this point. Because in this third round, Tank going for he's doing some good work. But, I give it to Santa Cruz. Although it was close, because Santa Cruz is still not letting him set his feet much, and he's still sticking with this game plan that he had starting of round 2. And he's still able to be effective with it, but Tank is seeing some holes in this now. So he is, unlike that second round, which was pretty dominant from Santa Cruz, Tank is now making some adjustments. And this is good boxing stuff. This is being more than just, for Tank. This is being more than just that one power puncher guy. And we'll see more of this even before the fight ends, I'll talk about here. Round 4, this is Tank. This round is for Tank. And this was a fireworks round of the fight as well. There is inside fighting in this 4th round right off the bat like none other. Lots of inside fighting. Gervonta landing here in this round. Gervonta, now you can see, actually lands that left uppercut that eventually ends the fight. He looks for it here. He lands one. He looks for it again and misses, or it's blocked. You can see him now looking for this shot because he knows that can be effective against Santa Cruz. But yeah, Tank refuses to be walked down as he was in that second and even somewhat the third. He's back to being the bully, which is what he needs to do. He needs to walk them down. He needs to get them towards a corner or towards the ropes to where they have to, angle out one way or the other, and you can still have your feet planted and go, when they're angling out to the left, and hit them to the left of the body or with a hook, or hooks to the right if they're angling out to the right. And Tank does this here. Leo's showing his heart, though. He's, again, like I talked about, he's allowing the inside fighting. He doesn't have to be a part of this like he wasn't in the first round. But I think what's key here, because he is able to stay away, he's proven that he's able to stay away. He's able to do good work with the jab and straights to keep Tank away and keep Tank from never getting off more than one punch. But a lot of times he wouldn't even get that. It would be blocked. But if he did, he'd get one good punch in there. But Leo would score several times with the jabs and straights before he'd get in on him. So this is not, this is Santa Cruz allowing the infighting. He's allowing this to be he's saying, oh, it's not that I can't get away from this, or he's drawing me into this. He's literally making his own choice to say, oh, you want a dog fight? Then let's just do it. Let's just throw hands in the middle of the ring. And that's probably, and it puts on for this amazing fight, man. It puts on for this amazing fight, but that was probably his undoing in the end. So that 4th round is Tank. 5th round. Okay, fifth round. Now when they come out right off the bat, you can notice more changes from Gervonta, which again, I love to see this kind of stuff in a guy that's known as just the knockout artist, which is hard to do in itself, man. Listen, if you're just heavy-handed, but you don't get lucky, you're a knockout artist because you knock everyone out. You always find a way. I find this fascinating, that you can be outboxed for a lot of rounds by people, and just always know with confidence, never worry that, oh, I hope I land one. It doesn't work that way. It works that way sometimes where people get, a knockout because they luckily land one and they're just trying to do something because they're losing the fight. But that is not Tank. That is not, that is not Wilder. That is not these knockout artists, because they are proven. You can't get lucky, 25 times in a row. You can't have 25 wins with 24 of them being KOs. You know what I mean? And by the way, that the only fight that ever went the distance with Tank, it almost went the distance in his last fight before this with Gamboa, but he still got that guy out of there in the 12th round. And the only fight that ever went the distance was way back when he had started. I don't think it was 6 or 7 years ago now, in his early career, where he had a 6-round fight. So that's half a fight. Fights are at least 10 rounds. Fights are 12 rounds usually, but at least 10 rounds. He only had a 6-round fight, so that one went the distance. That's not saying much. I believe he 100% would have got that guy out of there if it's 10, 12-round fight. So he's a knockout artist. But anyways, in this 5th round, this is brilliant to see that a guy that is a knockout artist, he still is now showing you that, like I said, I think there's something to take away from that Gamboa fight where he shows you that he can still be dangerous in the 12th round, that he can still box and win rounds if the fight is going the distance, anyway, without being a one-punch knockout guy, and gets that anyway in the end. But I think here in this fight, he does get the KO, but again, there's more to take away from it, man. This 5th round, he comes out and he's making changes, He's making great changes that you didn't see in the 4 previous rounds. He comes out with crazy peekaboo style, head movement. So when Leo is throwing the jabs to straights, jab, 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 straight, or jab, and then to the body, he's doing this because Tank's just trying to move around and get inside to where he can do his good work. But now Tank's really putting on the head movement. I mean, some of it even being unnecessary before he's ever being punched at. He's just putting on crazy head movement when this 5th round starts, to where Leo's, throwing these jabs and straights. He's usually able to land all of them. Now, he might miss all of them, but at best, he'll only get the one and, pop, and then he's moving his head that the other ones miss. And so he's shortening all these comboed punches, so he's not getting comboed anymore in this 5th round by Santa Cruz. And he is also, on top of not getting multiple punches, only taking none or one at a time, he's also able to get inside and then start doing his own work. And yeah, he avoids these combos, and making these changes is great. Santa Cruz had a little moment here in this round where he was able to back. It was just one moment too, where he was able to back up Gervonta, to the ropes, almost the corner, I think, actually. With the jabs and straights, all of a sudden they worked again for him. But that's short-lived, because he doesn't do real damage, but he backs Tank up to the corner where this is a great position for Santa Cruz, but Tank immediately clinches and turns him and just backs it, gets out of there. Now he's, so he just diffuses that as well. This 5th round is Tank all day. And then the 6th round, the final round that happens in the fight, I think Santa Cruz is absolutely winning this round before. So Gervonta, even in my book, just took 2 in a row, and very easy to say with that iffy third round that he maybe took 3 in a row. But then the 6th round starts, and Santa Cruz has been down, has lost at the very least the last 2 rounds in a row, and he is making unbelievable changes. He comes out on fire, absolutely winning the round with the jabs and straights again. And now instead of just jab, jab, straight, 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 now he's doing the jab, jab to the body, jab, jab to the body. So when you're doing your head movement, because he's jabbing you and throwing straights and jabbing you to death, you're doing the head movement because he's head hunting you a bit. He starts doing good work to the body now, to end his combinations, mixing things up so that Tank can't just use the head movement anymore. And he's doing very good work. He's doing big body shots at the end of his combos or hooks afterwards. You can see that Tank still, again, you can see that Tank is looking for that uppercut. The fewer shots that Tank land, they're doing more damage. So again, this is always the way that boxing is scored is kind of funny. They have a lot more of a scoring system than MMA does. For instance, in boxing, you can be scored positively for simply using good defense. If your defense is very effective, even if your offense isn't in one round, if you don't take much, but you can actually be scored in favor of defense. This is kind of how Floyd Mayweather lives. But you can also, they also do scoring, it's tricky. It's why it leaves a lot of debate every time, because the rounds, if you have a guy who's a volume puncher like Santa Cruz is, and he lands a lot more in one round than Davis does, you would think, well, then that scores him the round, but then not necessarily, because they also score on effectiveness. So if Tank lands, if Santa Cruz lands 12 good shots that, they're jabs and straights and things of that nature, but then Tank only lands 4, you'd think Santa Cruz would win, but not so fast, because what if Tank's 4 shots were much harder and therefore much more effective than the shot Santa Cruz? It kind of counts itself out there. So it gets tricky. But I think that Santa Cruz puts on really good work in this round, and then it just happens, man. Then it just happens, and again, but this is not, I'm not saying that because then it's just luck. You can see him looking for this uppercut. He actually lands it at least once, if not twice, previous in the fight, but he throws it, I want to say 5 to 7 different times before he gets it, before he gets the real beauty. He's throwing it, so he's looking for it. It's a punch that's thrown on purpose. It's not any punch. It's specifically the uppercut. Other than that, he's doing his hooks to try to beat up the guard a bit, and he's going to the body because he'll go there if it's open, and he can rip to the body quite well. But he's looking for that uppercut, and you can see that. Go back and watch the fight. And so it's brilliant. Then he lands it. And that's just it. He lands it, and he landed it before, but this time he lands it like a counter. He kind of barely gets grazed on the top of his head when Leo goes to throw. I forget if it was a jab or a straight, but again, Santa Cruz living and dying on that in this fight, and it was effective for him for some of it. But one of those, a jab or a straight, straight punch right up the center. He just slightly slips, and it does graze his head a bit. But while the punch is out there, he slips, and then, he slips the punch and is able to rip that left uppercut. And my God, what an uppercut. When you're taught how to throw, uppercuts are not unlike body shots. When you're taught boxing, you're taught to throw them with your elbow to your body, because this is how you guard, right? And so you don't want to cock all the way back and leave yourself open. You keep it to the body and you just chuck it in there. And it's kind of similar, instead of going to the body, that you'd rip up with the uppercut like that. But that is not, how Tank throws this one in. He he knows he got out of the way of a punch, and he's got Santa Cruz leaving his arm out there already. And so he throws this damn thing like from behind himself, looping up. I mean, just unreal. The torque on this thing, whipping Santa Cruz head back. And when I say a knockout, I mean, go watch it. This is boxing. This is not a TKO. This is a cold knockout that very well, I hope not. I pray to God not. We know that Santa Cruz is okay physically, but mentally, a lot of times these punches change a person, These kind of punches change because he got knocked cold out, meaning his brain shut off. His brain shut off. And they couldn't wake him up for 5 minutes. This is an all or nothing, the highest stakes that there are. And this was a flatlining punch. And he was in the corner. Santa Cruz was being cornered. And when he gets caught, it whips his chin up. It looks like it breaks his neck. It whips his chin up so high you can't even imagine. And then he slumps down and falls underneath the turnbuckle, holding the ropes. I mean, and then they couldn't wake him up, but then they did. And very deservingly, as Santa Cruz walked out there, he got a big ovation from the crowd for putting on a hell of a fight and for really being a warrior in there. But God bless him. But both these guys should be proud. And Tank, again, like I talked about in the episode before this, where I talked about what you look for, what you want to look for in these fights. Is not just, oh man, look at that shot because it was cool. If you're interested at all, you look for things like these changes that Tank was making, especially in round 5, with the head movement, with the looking, with all throughout the fight, with noticing with that tight guard, what's the shot that I'm going to score with? It's going to be that uppercut right up the middle. But, you can't, it's not how it works to just chuck it out there time and again. But he looks for it, and then he'll either get it or it's blocked. And then he takes some time and then, is doing other things because you don't want to show your cards of what you're trying to do. But then he'll go back to it after a while. He's looking for that punch and he finally gets it. What an amazing performance from Tank Davis. I've always been a huge Gervonta fan. And I think this was a great win for him, especially for his first pay-per-view headliner. He's usually on pay-per-views, but he's on the undercards of them. And he's drawn in an enormous fan base for some time now. I mean, he was on the undercard of the Maymac fight, Mayweather versus McGregor. He was on that undercard. He's been on a lot of great, huge pay-per-view undercards, and now he gets to headline his own. And my God, what a way to win it. He gets up on the ropes and he's screaming, and I love it. I love it, man. It gets me hyped up. And then, let's see, what else we got here? Let's do the, there's so many great fights to talk about. Let's jump into the Chisora versus Usyk fight. So, Derek Chisora taking on Usyk. Usyk being the cruiserweight, the cruiserweight champ, the head of the cruiserweights, he was leaps and bounds over almost all of his opponents down there. And that is right before you get into the heavyweight weight classes, is where cruiserweight is. So Usyk had a fight at heavyweight that was kind of duller, but he got the nod for it, and that was kind of his debut. Now, this was his second fight, and he's clearly not trying to go back down. He's trying to now. I mean, and he shouldn't. He conquered cruiserweight, so he's trying to make a name for himself in these heavyweight divisions now. And Chisora is a very good name. I thought that actually this was a very good fight for him to take because Derek Chisora, for one, he's a great name. He is no joke, right? He's no joke. He's a no joke opponent, and that's why he's a great name. Not just because of antics and the way he'll dress himself up and things in the face-offs, but because he is a good boxer, because he's a big guy. More than kind of even being a good boxer, because this guy's very physical. And man, when they got in there, I was kind of worried, honestly, in the start of this, because first off, I'll get into my scoring here quickly on this one. We'll try to move through. We got a lot to get to. But he looked so much bigger. He looked way more physical. So round one, I give this all day to Chisora. Derek Chisora just clinching to death. Just clinching up Usyk to death, which is smart because Usyk used very good, tricky movement is his whole kind of game. As I talked about before, similar to Lomachenko, he's as well Ukrainian, trained by Loma's dad. He uses great movement in there, and he is able to get effective with this later. But in this first round, he tries it, and Chisora, just once he's able to get to him, he clinches him, and he's just ripping him to the body. Chisora totally owns that first round. Second round, I also give this to Chisora, although Usyk's starting to get off that defensive movement a little bit, blocking a lot of shots, but Chisora just being highly aggressive and chasing him. Third round, now this is a close round. If you want to give this to Chisora, I'm fine too, because really he's being more the aggressor. He may have landed more shots too, but a lot of them, maybe not, because a lot of them were blocked, and Usyk starting to get good movement going here. And then fourth round, Usyk slips, but, there's some really good power shots so it's not a knockdown, but there is some good power shots here from Chisora. So I give that fourth round to Chisora. Fifth round, I'm really going to skip this because it ends up being irrelevant in the end, because the thing is there's not much that happens here at all in this fifth round. It was kind of strange how all of a sudden it was just kind of dull there, but then sixth round is close, but I give this to Usyk. So at this point, I'm watching the fight, and I am thinking, well, I'll have to go back to these questionable rounds, obviously, because if this fight goes the distance, which it did, chances are, these will be very important. But to me, they end up not necessarily being. Chisora is just chasing Usyk around the ring, but he's not able to be effective with it. So it's not even the kind of eye test of seeing a guy chase, because you can tell he is not very clearly landing these shots. So I give this to Usyk, but that's kind of up in the air. But then Usyk starts to totally run away with the fight from the seventh round on, and we can just end that there. From the seventh round on, I think there is absolutely no debate, right? So that's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. That's 6 rounds in a row that Usyk absolutely owns him. His movement is working, and now that Chisora has started to definitely get tired being the bigger guy and the guy who's doing a lot of chasing the entire fight, he was able to steal some of those early rounds, but Usyk just starts putting it on him, because now with the defensive movement, at first he was using it just to evade and to tire Chisora, but now he's starting to throw in the counters, and he starts absolutely working Chisora, and it progressively gets worse as the fight goes on. And in that 11th and 12th round, I was absolutely thinking that Usyk might get a stoppage because of how effective he was being with the countering, and as it gets on, it gets worse and worse. It starts off little counters, moving little counters, and then it ends up being, big combos, 4 to 6 punch combos that he's putting on Chisora. And he steals all 6 of these rounds, so that's half the fight. And if you give him one other round, which I think there's 3 or 4 even to pick from, you just give him one of those and he wins the fight. So either way, he wins the fight. To me, I scored it 115-113, meaning he won by 2 rounds. But you kind of you kind of take your pick. You can give him a better scorecard than that. One of the judges did, and one of the judges scored it the same as me. And there was another judge, or two of them. There was another judge that scored it with more rounds for Usyk, and I'm not really mad at that at all. I think it was a pretty good performance from him against a good name, and that was a good win. That was the DAZN. That was the DAZN fights that happened. And then the last thing that I want to touch on here is the monster from Japan, Inoue. Making his debut at Top Rank with Bob Arum and the fellas there. He was just dominant. Again, there's no need to he stops his opponent in the 7th round, right? But basically, he hurts Maloney in the 5th round. He hurts him really bad. He wobbles him with a great counter shot. And then he ends up dropping him in the 6th round. Then he finishes him brutally, too, in the 7th round. And the thing to take away more than any sort of fight, I thought he won every single round without debate. There's no way that you could not give him the round. He was so dominant. Now, this is important. I think his name's Jason, but yeah, Maloney, not the best opponent that you could put in front of a guy, right? Let's just be real. It is not. But is he a seasoned boxer? Yes, and him and his brother both box, and they're tough guys. So it's a good kind of start him off, but it's not necessarily just a gimme. I mean, you got to show up to fight, and the thing is not based on beating Maloney, but based on the way that Inoue looked in this fight. I see him being a real problem for every single solitary bantamweight that there is boxing on planet Earth. And those divisions are not filled as much as like the lightweight divisions or some of the heavier, welter or heavyweight division. But that still, I don't think anyone, I think I can say already that he will be king of the bantamweights. He will have to move up even, further than he already has. He keeps moving up and down, moves up in weight and carries the power with him there. His speed is incredible. And I made a note here that, there's power, there's speed. Also, he does not get tired. He showed that in the Donaire fight, which I thought was his best win too, and showed you that he had his orbital bone broken in the 2nd round of that Donaire fight, and still came back to win the round, and I think even dropped Donaire as well in the later rounds, and to win the fight. Here's the thing. So he doesn't get tired. He keeps the speed. He keeps the power all along. He has a chin. He showed that. He can get hurt, and it doesn't matter. He doesn't get dropped. He won't go down. If he does, he certainly will never stay down. This guy just looks like he is a monster. He's a monster. You got to check this guy out. He's absolutely insane. The one other thing that I made a note here of before we go is that his ability to close distance and get back out of the pocket, in the pocket, out of the pocket, at free will is unbelievable. And that's not based off of this fight just versus Maloney. This is off of Donaire too. This is off of everybody he's ever fought. He is so damn fast, not just with his punches, but his feet. His foot movement is so fast that it's not even funny. So basically, boxing, it's got all these levels, right? You have all these levels, right? It's power punchers versus the technicians versus the brawlers, versus the Mayweathers of the game. But the game is really over. Like, all of it doesn't matter if you are a power puncher or you are a technician kind of guy, or if you are anything and fighting a power puncher or a technician. Once you are able to have this insane ability that Inoue has of closing the distance and throwing off more than a punch and back, and throwing off combos and backing out before you're ever hit, once you're able to just close the gap at will, anytime that you want to, the game's over. It doesn't matter, man. It doesn't matter if you're fighting. He needs somebody who's a good power puncher to catch him once, or he needs somebody who's a technician who can evade the. No, this is all of it goes back to your feet and where your feet are. And once you're able to close the gap in the way that he is, with incredible timing and speed, once you're able to have incredible timing of countering people when, you know, they're throwing shots, and have make reads in there the way that he is, and just have you're picking the way the fight goes. He could spend the whole fight fighting any way that he wants. If he wanted to stay on the outside and jab a guy to death and then counter him, he has the impeccable timing to still not just win fights, but probably end up still finishing his opponents just off of countering them and trying to stay away. And if he wanted to make the fight, you know, I don't even know how to say it. It wouldn't be a brawl. If he wanted to have inside fighting that's completely one-sided to his benefit, he could do that as well. I mean, this guy, that's the key here that I want you to come away with about Inoue, the monster from Japan, now here in America with Top Rank. You know, I'm definitely watching every single solitary fight that he has, and not watching them later as I have, you know, up to this point. This was the first fight of mine that I have watched when it happened, and chose to actually watch that fight, and then watched, you know, the Chisora Usyk fight I watched after it happened. That you have to, you know, take a pick here, because all these fights are going on at the same time, and the Showtime, the DAZN, and the Top Rank fights are all going on, so you have to pick and choose what you're watching here. So I kind of put the DAZN fight as to watch later, and did that. But this fight, I'm gonna watch the monster every single time that he fights live from now on, because he deserves it. He's just fantastic. He couldn't have impressed, you know, me, but whatever. He I think couldn't have impressed more. I mean, he dominated every single second of that fight, as he's dominated every second of every fight that he's had, except the Donaire, where again, you want to take, like we talked about with Tank, you want to take other things away when people say Tank Davis had this fight with you know, with Yuriorkis Gamboa, where it went to the 12th round, and he almost, you know, he pulled it out of the fire, but he almost couldn't make it happen. You know, I look at that and say, oh, well, he showed that he can go all 12 rounds and still box and win rounds, and also go all 12 rounds and be that devastating with power still.